Hey everybody, this is Perch. Stands. What are stands? Well, I'm sure you listening to this video probably know what a stan is, but it's basically it's slang for somebody who's a very excited fan. Somebody who is all in on everything, particularly around celebrities or music or movies. And stands are most found, I would say, online, certainly on social media, and probably most of all on Twitter. Now, overall, the stan community sounds like a nice thing. Hey, we've had really hyped up fans for a very, very long time. The difference is, and kind of how it's developed, is stans often have to grab attention. It's not enough to just be a fan. You need to be the biggest fan. And this is where things go slightly awry. We've certainly seen it with we've seen it with comic shops, lately, kind of going all in on things, and we've seen it on Twitter. The most recent example of this, and here's a case where, regardless of what you think of the book, the work, the author, anything else, I'll give you an example of where stans go entirely wrong. And you may just say to yourself, this is a really extreme example and not indicative of what goes on in a lot of places. But I'd say that's not entirely true. This kind of behavior is infected almost everything. So there's an author called Tess Sharp who wrote a book called Far From You, and it's being made into a movie, or just the stuff is happening around this title, and great. And this is a relatively small book, but there's this long tweet thread right now from Tess Sharp talking about harassment. Well, I've started to not dismiss, but squint a little bit at claims of harassment online, because there could be a very wide range of what I would call true harassment, meaning somebody is really just beating up on somebody every single day, or kind of like you heard in the interview with Jim Zub, it's maybe like 2 or 3 people or a dozen people who are just replying continuously over and over. And it may feel like harassment, but if you take the moment kind of to neutrally center yourself and look at who's actually responding, you see it's a relatively small group. So when somebody says they've been harassed, I tend to, where in the spectrum does it sit? More often than not, it sits in the very minor phrase, which doesn't make it right. It just it does weight kind of a little bit what's being said. So as I looked into the situation with Tess Sharp, and again, nothing to do with the creator, I have no idea. I full disclosure, I haven't read anything by Tess Sharp. I have no idea if the person's a wonderful person or a maniac on social media. No idea. All I know is this book was written Far From You, and the fans are there's really aggressive hardcore stans of Far From You. And what is the latest drama? Well, apparently Tess Sharp was asked to reveal the birthday of one of the characters, or the astrology sign. It's a little hard to tell, kind of the same. And when she did not, a number of these super stan fans said that they would kill her. And you might say this sounds ludicrous. It is. It absolutely is ludicrous. But there's a significant amount. This is more than like a dozen. There's a decent amount of the stan community that starts to say kind of 2 things. One, we are customers, so we are owed this character information. You must give it to us because we've given you money, so therefore you owe it to us. And if you don't give it to us, maybe you shouldn't. It wandered from maybe you shouldn't write to maybe you shouldn't live. And this continued kind of at length. Now, I don't want to give more attention to this than is necessary, but there was an interesting cycle where, as Sharp kind of came out and was public about this kind of lunacy that was really related to the stan community, a lot of the fans and even some people in the middle kind of doubled down and said, well, you really did it to yourself, because you should have just told them what they wanted to know. You should have just revealed the birthday. Now, I want you to kind of stop for a moment and just contemplate how batshit crazy all of that is. The idea that an author or anyone has to give this trivial, nonsensical, out of character information. And that is something, A, you're owed. And that, two, if they don't give it to you, that you've been wronged in some way. Because that's kind of where this all went. It went to, you've hurt us, you've attacked, and you see these posts, you've attacked the fan community because you didn't give us this information. In comics, I do see some of the same things. The Poison Ivy stan community gets like this, where if you write the character in a way that they don't approve of, they're fiercely angry. And who makes the rules of how you're supposed to write the character? Well, they do. That's not normal. None of this is normal, and I think standing in general is not particularly normal. Amelia Clark has a new comic coming out, and it's definitely an indie concept. And what I mean by that is it's not a mainstream concept. You got a superhero woman character whose emotions kind of drives her powers. Okay, but menstruation ties heavily into this and kind of other things. And again, that's fine. Hopefully it's an entertaining comic. Hopefully people like it. But it's very much an indie concept. And I'm watching fans of Amelia Clark go super lunatic on people who, comment on this comic in any way. And it's not people who are like insulting it, saying this comic looks like trash. If you're coming in with an aggressive comment, then, it's that old don't start some if you don't want to get some. If you come in with an aggressive comment, you're going to get an aggressive comment back. No, the stans in this case are going after very benign comments like, well, this doesn't seem interesting to me. I mean, things that are very basic, and they're being responded with the you go die. I hope you are raped. Like just terrible kind of very aggressive stuff. And this is part of just social media, I think, encourages this. Like what I talked about at the beginning, the stan community, which in theory is just super hyped up fans. You could argue that Marvel Zombies were kind of an early incarnation of the stan community. The difference is this community is daring each other to go further and further and further to prove they are the number one fans. And the whole process is dangerous. I think it's a sliding slope where it seems to get more and more toxic as it goes on. But I think it's definitely a large problem, and it's all part of this encouragement to not just argue, but argue for death, argue to absolutely the most extreme places there is. These aren't fans anymore. The entertaining part is not the original product. It's not the original comic or movie or music or celebrity or what it happens to be. The entertaining topic is going out there and going to war for your topic, for your piece. The thing you're going to war for almost doesn't matter. It's largely irrelevant. In many cases, the creators, the people who are, whether the musician or the comic artist or whoever it happens to be, they're horrified in many cases by this. But here's an area where creators do need to help. A lot of people need to help to get this stuff boiled down. The first thing is it's very tempting when stan communities start to kind of really develop. And you see it. You saw it. I'll use an example. You saw it with Donny Cates. Donny Cates encouraged a lot of the stan community around Venom when he first took over that title. He was into it. He was responding. He was thumbing up. He was even kind of taking their sides in some cases against fights. The challenge is those people then quickly turned into lunatics. Now, it's not Donny Cates' responsibility. It's not his responsibility to police the people who are fans of him. Just the part that he could help with, or any comic creator or person can help with in terms of stans, is when you see a very rabid, very aggressive fan, and they start going after someone else on your behalf, don't encourage it. Several comic creators do. And there's lots of justification. It's like, well, they're going after the evil bad trolls of comics. They're going after the annoying people on Twitter. They're saying things like, F this group or that group. Comic creators should not weigh into that debate. They should stay clear of it. when you see a fan of yours, even though they're on your side, getting really hardcore and aggressive with somebody else, even if that other group is a jerk, even if that other group is annoying, they shouldn't, clap it on. They shouldn't retweet it. They shouldn't join in. There's been other creators who I think for fun, go after some of these groups and then seem surprised when things spiral out of control, which they do. I think Tom King's experienced this. Donny Cates has certainly experienced this. There's others that see it, and it's all fun and games while you're attacking, quote unquote, the baddies, but that group that you're empowering quickly becomes nuts. And I think this Tess Sharp situation is one of these where literally, not a dozen, hundreds of people who have turned rabid, claiming that because they supported her, and this is the problem with encouraging the Stan community, is you support them, and then the Stans believe you owe them. They came to your defense. They bought your stuff. They were your fans, and now as they get crazier and crazier, you have to continue to be on their side, or they turn on you. Not healthy for comics. Not healthy for anything. But it's social media encourages this. As a creator, don't also encourage it. This is lunatic behavior, and we also have to start. This is an area where no, there isn't a middle ground. When somebody acts like a lunatic, it's interesting to understand why, to do the research and to understand how they got to that point. But lunatics are lunatics, and they need to be called out as such. Anyway, Stans, it's comics are rife with them. There's tons, and I think it's just crazy. But it's funny. I see comic shops just wanting to jump into this battle. What Big Bang did over Ninjak. It's another example. Don't weigh into this battle. Don't join it, because all you're doing is you're giving people who are mentally unbalanced, frankly, you're giving them a go-ahead to act insane, and they will. And whether it's in the short term or the long term, eventually they turn on you too. Anyway, that is what it is. just watch out. Watch out for crazy. Thanks for listening.